In the aftermath of Republican Minority Leader Mitch McConnell's second apparent medical episode in which he froze during a public press conference, there are questions about what his Democratic governor, Andy Beshear, will do if McConnell is unable to fill out the remainder of his vacancy. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. Maybe check out my Patreon. I'd appreciate the support. All right, so full disclosure, this is probably, again, one of those stories that's not quite as sexy, I guess I would say. It involves Mitch McConnell, so clearly not. But obviously, Mitch McConnell is a very important, very powerful political figure, regardless of what you think of him or what your personal politics are. So it has some national relevance, but it's also, I would say, more of an issue of state politics. Now, the reason that I'm talking about this is, again, the implications nationally for McConnell, but also because I used to live in Kentucky, the state in which McConnell, or the state that McConnell represents to the Senate. We have a really, really good governor in Kentucky, a Democrat named Andy Beshear, who's actually running for re-election this year in November, and he's up against Daniel Cameron, who is a terrible person and one of Mitch McConnell's proteges. He's currently the Attorney General for Kentucky, and he and Andy Beshear, Governor Beshear, have been at odds basically for the length of their appointments to office. Now, that said, I just want to remind everybody this is what happened to Mitch McConnell last week, in which he froze again at a public press conference.
What are my thoughts about what?
Running for re-election in 2026.
That's
Did you hear the question, Senator? Running.
So again, he froze. He apparently has recovered again. This is the second time this has happened, I think, since June or July, right? Now, then the question becomes, what happens if, for whatever reason, Mitch McConnell either resigns or medical issues take him out of office one way or another? He's just unable to fulfill the remainder of his term. What happens then? Now, typically, the sitting governor of the state of that particular senator will fill the vacancy, right? And Democrat, Republican, it typically doesn't matter. If a senator is unable to fulfill their term, it is the governor who fills the vacancy. Kentucky's a bit different, and it's only a bit different lately, okay? So you may recall that there have been questions about McConnell's health for like 3 years. I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago, in which like he was seen with like some sort of signs of like necrosis or bruising on his hands, right? Again, calling into question. He's 81 years old, about his physical health. And the thing is, though, when it comes to bending, twisting, or breaking norms to accommodate short-term gains, Republicans are so good at that, right? That is like that they get like full marks, okay? They exceed expectations in Harry Potter language. And so anticipating this, McConnell and state Republicans in the Kentucky General Assembly, by the way, they have a supermajority. It is dominated. They're able to override basically any veto by Andy Beshear. They anticipated this because prior to this, any governor could just fill the vacancy. And they're thinking, oh, crap, if something happens to McConnell, he's a Republican, and Andy Beshear is a Democrat, Beshear would be able to appoint a liberal or a progressive to take McConnell's place. That's not good. So the Kentucky State Assembly rewrote the law basically saying, yeah, the governor can fill the vacancy, but it has to be from a pre-approved list from Kentucky Republicans from the state legislature, okay? Now, Governor Beshear vetoed this. Of course he would, right? Because this is yet another attempt by Republicans to, squash a governor's power, particularly a Democratic governor's power. But then the question becomes, again, what happened? So this is a recent report by the Washington Post. Kentucky's governor won't commit to appointing a Republican if McConnell resigns. It's an interesting article. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear is declining to say whether he would follow a state law requiring him to appoint a Republican in the event of a Senate vacancy. A reporter asked Beshear on Thursday whether, if McConnell were to step down, he would choose a replacement from one of 3 nominees selected by the state Republican Party, as the statute requires. And listen, Andy Beshear, by the way, solid dude, right? He, genuinely, like, watch any interview with him. This man is competent. He is compassionate. Great guy, phenomenal guy. Kentucky could not do better in terms of its governor. There is no Senate vacancy, Beshear responded. McConnell has said he's going to serve out his term, and I believe him, so I'm not going to speculate about something that hasn't happened and isn't going to happen. Asked whether voters deserve to know his stance on the issue, Beshear said he would not sensationalize McConnell's health. Again, he's running for re-election, yada, yada, yada. Republican senators Let me skip here. Beshear's remarks raised questions about whether the governor might challenge the 2021 law and seek to appoint a Democratic senator. He vetoed the statute after the state's Republican legislature passed it, calling the bill unconstitutional. The legislature, of course, again having a supermajority, overrode Governor Beshear's bill. The law, backed by McConnell, requires a governor to select within 21 days one of 3 nominees chosen by state-level party apparatus of the departing senator. A special election must then be held to select a more permanent replacement. The timing would depend on when the vacancy occurred. In his veto message, Beshear said the law violates the 17th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which gives voters the right to directly cast ballots for senators rather than state legislatures filling the seats. The amendment also says a state legislature can empower a governor to temporarily the amendment also says a state legislature can empower a governor to temporarily fill a vacancy unless an election can be held. The bill therefore upends a century of precedent by delegating the power to select a representative of all Kentuckians to an unelected, unaccountable committee of an organization that represents only a fraction of Kentuckians. The governor argued that the law violates a provision of the Kentucky Constitution that says state-level vacancies shall be filled by the appointment of the governor. No conditions, qualifications, or limits placed on that appointment power. Okay. In addition to the comments Thursday, Beshear declined to answer a question from Politico this month on whether he would commit to appointing a Republican replacement for McConnell. There's not going to be a vacancy, he told Politico. That would be total speculation. Okay. Folks, this is good. This is good energy from Governor Beshear, and one of the reasons why he is so good at what he does. He, once again, demonstrates the vast moral superiority of Democratic officials compared to Republican officials, because I have absolutely no reason whatsoever to believe Republicans would speak this way if the shoe were on the other foot. Now, according to Michael Abate, a Louisville-based attorney with expertise in constitutional law, Governor Beshear would have 2 questions, or two options. The governor could file a lawsuit challenging the statute or immediately appoint someone not on the state Republican Party's list of 3 names, citing that statute's unconstitutionality, which of course would probably prompt a court battle. I do think there's a real and substantial question here. Historically, when the governor is given power of appointment for something like this, or the executive power is given, it's often pretty wide-ranging discretion. So, yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on this because I already have, but again, it's full disclosure, love Andy Beshear. He's phenomenal. And it's just a cynical attempt by Republicans to game the system in a way that maintains, it either creates, maintains, or accelerates an advantage that they already have. This is what they do. This is like the 1 or 2 areas in which they are phenomenally skilled, and the Democrats are simply not because they lack the skill necessarily, but just because they lack that sort of gamesmanship, ethic. But good on Andy Beshear refusing to commit. That's good. And hopefully he will not comply. He will pursue this till the bitter end. That's the energy that Democrats should bring to the situation, because it is the energy that Republicans would bring to the situation if the shoe were on the other foot.